I just started the recording. So TJ, do you want to go ahead and since we just got started, do you want to back up and kind of touch on the areas that you have already covered?
Yes. Let me go over
Okay.
this just the call for project timeline again. That's the only real thing that was missed. So currently the call for projects is open. Applications are due April 14th. They're due electronically at 5 o'clock. Must be submitted to the via.grants@viainfo.net, that email address. The application evaluations will take place between April and May, and then we hope to have the awards approved in May, as well as, and then have our subrecipient agreements executed between June and July. The funding available will cover a 2-year period. The total funding available is a little over 4.2 million. The 5310 program overview. The 5310 program is a federal program that aims to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities. It provides grant funds for transportation projects that are planned, designed, and carry out to meet the special needs of seniors and individuals with disability when public transportation is insufficient, inappropriate, or unavailable. It exceeds the requirement of the ADA Act. It improves access to fixed route services and decreases the reliance on complementary paratransit. And it provides alternatives to public transportation that assists seniors and individuals with disability with transportation. So in short, this funding is all about the planning, organization, and operating of transportation services for individuals who are seniors or with disabilities. VIA's roles and responsibilities. These are not VIA's funds. They're federal funds that come from the Federal Transportation Administration, or the FTA. VIA is the designated recipient of these funds, so we have the following responsibilities, such as conducting the call for projects, certify that all projects are included in the coordinated plan, certify that it's fair and equitable distribution of funds, oversee the implementation of the projects, manage all aspects of grant distribution and reporting, and then oversee the compliance oversight and risk assessments. The coordinated plan. The regional coordinated transportation plan identifies transportation needs, the availability of transportation, and the priorities within our region. It's a requirement that all 5310 funded programs work to meet the needs outlined in this plan. This plan is available on VIA's website. So you would want to go through this plan and make sure that the projects you're requesting funding for coordinate with the goals and needs outlined in this plan. San Antonio Urbanized Area. All projects must benefit the San Antonio Urbanized Area. Trips must either originate or end in the UZA or provide connecting services to the UZA. So when you're requesting funding for your projects, they must take place with that dark purple shaded area all around San Antonio. Traditional versus non-traditional. FTA categorizes its funding into 2 different project types. Due to the merge of the 5317 and the 5310 program, which was effective October 1st, 2012, the traditional projects represents the projects that were eligible under the 5310 program before the merge, and the non-traditionals represents the projects that were added after the merge. FTA requires 55% of its funding to be used on traditional projects. This is a minimum, so potentially you can have all the funding that goes towards traditional projects as long as you have a minimum of 55%. This split does not have to be reflected in your request for projects. So if you're only asking for let's say 90% of non-traditional projects and only 10% traditional, that's fine. But it's something to take in consideration because at least the 55% has to be funded as a whole. Who is eligible to apply for 5310 funding? So private, nonprofit organizations and state and local organizations that are approved by the state to coordinate for seniors and individuals with disabilities, or they certify that there are no nonprofit organizations readily available in the area to provide the service. Both of these types of organizations are able to apply, or they're eligible to apply for both traditional and non-traditional funding. But under non-traditional, operators of public transportation services can receive Section 5310 funds indirectly through a recipient. And FTA defines public transportation as regular, continuing, share ride transportation services that are open to the general public or open to a segment of the general public defined by age, disability, or low income. Here we have some examples of traditional projects. We have several line categories here, starting off with vehicles and related equipment. So in this categories, you could purchase buses or vans. They have to be ADA accessible. And then equipment that you are able to purchase would be wheelchair lifts, ramps, and securement devices. Next is hardware and software. These have to have at least a useful life of 1 year. Some examples of hardware would be printers and computers. And some examples of software would be dispatching or scheduling software. Software is not a subscription-based service, so this does not include things such as internet service or phone service. It has to be something that it's like one-time purchase, and then it has a useful life of at least a year or more. Preventive maintenance. Preventive maintenance can cover things such as oil change, inspections, repairs to the motor, body work, bus washes, vehicle supplies. Preventive maintenance is only available for 5310 funded vehicles. So if you do not have a 5310 funded vehicle, you're not able to request preventive maintenance. Also, preventive maintenance does not cover things like tires or fuel. This is more along the lines of an operation line item. Purchase of service. Purchase of service is contracted services that must be comparatively procured. So if your agency is a smaller agency and doesn't have the capacity or the staff to do the trips directly, you can put out a call for projects yourself and contract other providers or other organizations to provide the trips for you. And then if any fares are collected for purchase of service, they have to be deducted from the total expense. Two-way radio is purchasing and maintaining radio communication systems for your transit vehicles. And then mobility management is short-range planning and management activities for improving coordination of transportation services. So this has anything to do with like the dispatching and planning of the transportation. This does not include any operating of transportation services. Next up, we have the non-traditional project examples. Some examples of the non-traditional projects is travel training, volunteer driving programs, or just general operational assistance. And that includes everything from driver salaries, fuel, tires, basically anything you need to operate your public transportation services. All of these projects are subject to 50% match requirement. And for a complete list of projects, you can refer to the 5310 circular, which is the 9070.1G circular, which is available on FTA's website as well as the 53 webpage on the VIA's website. So there you can look for a complete list of traditional and non-traditional projects, but the ones we went over here is some of the ones that we're kind of recommending that you use. Local match. Since these are federal funds, you have to put in local match as part of the requirement as the project. So for the capital projects or all the traditional projects require 20% local match. For ADA accessible vehicles, it only requires a 15%, and then operating or the non-traditional projects require a 50% match. Fare box is not included in your match. It's to be deducted from the total expense. And then we have there a list of some allowable sources of local match, which is state or local apportionments, private donations, revenue from service contracts, and then income generated from advertising and concessions, and then transportation development credits, or TDCs. Transportation development credits, or TDCs, these can be used in lieu of local match. They're awarded through TxDOT. They are not available for operating projects, so only the capital projects they're available for so that 20% match, and then also the 15% match for vehicles. And these are not guaranteed. So if you're requesting these TDCs, you have to certify that you are willing and you have the sufficient funds, local funds available to meet the match requirements if they're not awarded. So if we submit a request for TDCs to TxDOT and they, for some reason or another, they deny us, you have to have the local funds available to complete these projects. So in the example there, we have a $100,000 project. The first part of it is without the TDCs. So the whole project both costs $100,000. So the federal amount without the TDCs is $80,000, and then the local match you would be required to put in is $20,000. With the TDCs, however, the full $100,000 will be funded, and then there'll be zero local match requirement, and then there'll just be a credit of TDCs as for $20,000. Be sure to check yes if you're interested in applying for TDCs on your application. These TDCs will also have an expiration date, which is set by TxDOT. So if your grant needs an extension and it goes past the end date, there's a chance that even though you had TDCs for a certain project, they could expire, and then you would be required to put in whatever local match is needed. Federal requirements. Since these are federal funds, there's federal requirements, and there's also requirements set by FTA. As part of the federal requirements, you have to be registered in sam.gov, and you have to maintain your registry there throughout the life of the contract. You also have to follow the 2 CFR 200 uniform guidance. These are saying that all cost principles must comply with federal cost principles, and then costs must be fair and reasonable. And there's also some examples of non-reimbursable expenses that no matter the reason, they're just not allowable, such as lobbying, late penalties and fees, taxes, and alcohol. And then only expenses allowable or allocable to 5310 are reimbursable. And then for FTA projects, you have to follow their FTA procurement policies. And then you also must have a Title VI, EEO, ADA, and DBE policy. If you do not have these policies in place, you can still apply for these funds, but you will need to create and implement them. And VIA can assist you with that. Also to the right, we have FTA requirements resources, the FTA master agreement, the annual restrictions and assurances, and then the 5310 circular, the award management requirement circular, and the third-party contracting circular. These are all really good resources to look at and use for applying and receiving these funds. Some of them are available on our website. The 5310 circular and the award management circular are available on the 5310 page of the VIA website. That's the end of the first part of our section. So is there any questions in chat, Christina?
I don't see any questions in the chat at this time. So are there any questions from the audience? I think you have everybody muted at this point. So do you want to unmute everybody and
let me see if I can
give an opportunity if there are any questions?
You can,
or you can raise your hand.
Yeah, you can use the option to raise your hand.
Okay, it looks like Jay has a question.
Yeah, my question has to do with the toll credits or whatever. So we should just, when we're doing our budget, we should plan to put our 20% match in and then check the box if they're available that they would be there, or how should we put together our budget for that?
Yes.
So make the assumption that we're still going to match with local funds, and then if they're available, we would still get them.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, you're going to fill out this application with the assumption that there's going to be no TDCs at all. but there is a box where you can check that you're requesting them. And then once we have the award, we'll request the TDC credits from TxDOT. And if they're awarded, we'll take that in consideration when funding your grant or funding your project.
So at this point in time, with your knowledge, do you think they will be available?
They usually are. I can't say like I'll give you 100% guarantee that I can tell you yes, but from my experience, it's something it's usually given.
Yeah, I
Yes.
used to always get them whenever I was acquiring a bus, whenever we were still being funded through TxDOT, but that never happened with VIA. So that's why I'm asking the question.
Right, and I will say that that's one of the things to make sure that when you apply on your application, to make sure that you indicate on there that you do want to have TDCs requested on
Okay.
your behalf, and we will submit that for you.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, I guess we can start the next part. So next we have the application information. Hang on. There we go. On our webpage, this is where the application is located under the 5310 call projects. If you click here, it'll open up the whole link. And not only will it have the application, but it'll have the supplemental pages as well. So there's 3 supplemental forms to fill out in this part. Evaluation criteria. So here's the criteria which your evaluation will be graded on. The 5 criteria is project needs, the planning and implementation of projects, the budget and financial capacity, program effectiveness and evaluation, organizational preparedness, and technical capacity. So when you're filling out your application, these are some things to keep in mind. You want to answer these questions. Also, if you want to look on the application sheet itself, there's a complete rubrics which has a little bit more detail into each one of these things and what we're looking for. So the funding application has about a few different parts of it. The first part is the agency profile. Here, this is just some general information about your organization, such as contact information and how long your organization has been operating. The primary purpose of your organization, this is where we'll be asking for your mission statement and also a description of all services your organization provides. And then the narrative, the project narrative and budget, where I'll go over on the next slide. And then application authority. This is where we need a signature from either the executive director or the president of your board, or whichever authority figurehead you'll have to sign off on these requests or this application. And then the supplemental forms and attachments. Project narrative. The project narrative is made up of 5 different parts. Within the project narrative, you have the project description. Here is you describe the project that you're requesting funding for. The more information you put in here, the better. We want to know things like the time and days your service will be provided, the method of delivery of your service, the cost of fares you're going to be charging to the clients. The more information you put in here, the better. The project's needs. Here you want to put how your project aligns with the 5310 project program objectives. And then it also needs to identify how it plans to meet the needs of the coordinated plan. Project planning and implementation. Here you're going to be talking about how long it's going to take to start your project, or if funding is going to help continue an ongoing project. And then we also need to know if you're coordinating with other organizations. Program effectiveness and evaluation. Here you want to put in your goals on what you want to achieve with your project. They need to be quantifiable goals. So they need to be things as we want to provide X number of trips in this financial year. Organizational preparedness. Does your organization have enough staff? Do they have past experiences? And does your organization have the financial capacity to meet match requirements? Here's the proposed budget summary from the application form. This is where you're going to put the total estimated costs of the 2-year period. And then you're going to put the federal share and local share, not factoring in TDCs. The budget summary totals are going to be supported in the detailed budget request form, which we'll go over shortly. And then you're going to outline them by the categories of vehicle purchase, acquisition of service, or purchase of service, and then other capital items, which includes the preventive maintenance, hardware and software, or any equipment that you're requesting, mobility management, and operating assistance. This is the detailed budget request form. This is a supplemental form that you have to submit with your application. This is where you're going to be putting the requested budget of your projects. So here's an example of it. You're going to have 2 years of funding, so you'll have year 1 costs as well as year 2 costs, and then it'll calculate the totals for you. Be sure you itemize your expenses. Local match does not factor into the TDCs here. Be sure you include fair revenue, and then also any calculations of your projected fair revenue for each year. You have to do that for operating expenses or any purchase of service expenses that you're requesting. And then only costs allocable to 5310 projects are allowed here. And even though you're requesting TDCs for your project, we're still asking you, it's going to split it out separately as if you're putting in a local share. When we review your documentation, and then once we request the toll credits from TDCs, we'll make that adjustment. So if you're asking for like $10,000 for a funding project, we won't award you the $8,000 if the TDCs are accepted. We'll award you the full $10,000. And then also, if you have salary positions, be sure you list the position there. And then we also will need a employee description or a position description of each member that you're charging for this program. Next, we have an example of allocating expenses. This is a payroll example. So I know a lot of smaller organizations, a lot of employees wear multiple hats. So here we have Sally, who's a mobility manager and also an office administrator. So she works on 5310 transportation, aging, and administrative duties throughout the week. And here she charges her time during each day to each program. So then at the end of this pay period, you can see she has a total amount of hours in each line item or to each program. And then you get the amount that's allocable to the 5310 program. So below the timesheet, you have the payroll expenses, which is $960. The percentage allocated to the 5310 program, which is the amount that's being charged to the 5310, is 62%. So that amount would be $595. Since this is mobility management, it's has a 20% local match requirement. So the federal amount that's reimbursable for this expense would be $476, and then you would have to put in the local match of the $119. And you can use this method to other expenses. So just anything that's fair and equitable, you can charge to the program. Here we have the fleet inventory form. This is another supplemental form. Here we want you to list all vehicles that are going to be used for 5310 trips. So we need to know like the make and model, the year, what kind of mileage it has, and what kind of condition it is. And The next form is the vehicle purchase form. This is going to be used if you're requesting a new vehicle or a replacement vehicle. Here, you're going to put what kind of vehicle you're going to request. You're going to have have an estimate of the price. The estimated price on this page should be consistent with the price reflected in the detailed budget request form. And then you're either going to say whether it's going to be a replacement or expansion. If it's going to be a replacement, we need to know the information about the vehicle that's replacing. And then once you receive the new vehicle that it replaced will have to be either sold or destroyed. And then if it's an expansion, it's just adding another vehicle to the fleet. Here's the application checklist. Here's some things that you're going to need for the application to be submitted. You're going to need a signed and completed 5310 funding application. You're going to need the detailed budget request form, the fleet inventory supplemental form, the vehicle maintenance plan, vehicle purchase supplemental form, and supporting budget calculations scheduled for purchase of service requesting, mobility management job descriptions, financial and senior audit for the previous 2 years, and any agreements with any other organizations or letters of support. So before you send in your application, you want to take a look at this sheet and be sure you have everything that's applicable to you. And that way you can send in all the documents that we need.
I believe there is a checklist that is also included in the application document itself.
And then here, if you have any more additional questions, Christina Boone, who's the manager of grants, and then also me, who's in charge of the 5310 program or the subrecipients, there's the email address that you need to submit your documents to. And then there's our website that has a lot of information that can be used. So is there any more questions for this second portion?
There was one question that came up in the chat, and it was just regarding if the slides will be available afterwards. And so yes, they will. They'll be added. The slides, the PowerPoint presentation will be added to our website. And we do plan on posting a copy of the recording of this meeting as well. Looks like we have another question coming in. And TJ, I'm not sure if everybody is still on mute. We can also use, you can raise your hand if you have questions also. So Jay has a question about if all of the forms on the if all of the forms that are required are on the website to complete. Yes, and so TJ, did you have
I can show you. So here's where it is on the website. Here, I'll go ahead and click on this link that goes to the VIA website.
And this is just our normal VIA's actual web page.
Yes, so you can go here, or you can just simply type 5310 here, and it'll be like the first thing that pops up. Or you can go to the business with VIA, the section 5310 grants. And then this is the page where you access the webinar. And then down here where it says 5310 call for projects, you click that. And then here's the application form and all the supplemental forms that are needed to fill it out.
Thank you for that question, Jay, and thank you, TJ, for kind of running through that. It's not super easy to get to, so I think it's good to have that information out there. So thank you both. Are there any other questions? You're also free to, if you think of a question subsequently, you're free to submit questions to the via.grants@viainfo.net email address, you know, if you think of something later on.
Okay, well, that'll conclude our meeting today. Like Christina said, if you have any more questions or comments or concerns, you can feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be sure to get back with you. But if that's all, have a good Friday and good weekend. Thank you.
I think Jay has his hand up.
Uh-oh.
You
I
might
think you're
wanna
on mute, Jay. Can you
Yeah,
unmute
can you
yourself?
unmute everybody?
I think you can unmute
There
yourself.
we go. I didn't see on the application form where I check a box that we're interested in. Oh, I see it. Is your agency requesting TDCs? And the answer is yes. All right.
Yes,
That
it's
answers
on,
my
it's on
question.
page 14. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? Jay, did you have another question? Well, thank you too. I'm glad that y'all are here. All right. We'll give it a couple more minutes. We got some thank yous coming in, so definitely thank you to all of you for participating.
Thanks, Christina.
We
It's
look
good seeing
forward
you
to
again.
getting your applications. Yes, it was good seeing you too, Gilbert. All right. Thank you all for attending. Okay, I believe that's it. We can go ahead and call it a wrap.
Christina, you want to stop the
Yeah, stop recording.